is.
I think he's playing a version of the character that I played in the first two movies and in the early part of this one.
Tommy Lee Jones. The name alone conjures an image of grit, intelligence, and unyielding presence. For decades, he's been Hollywood's no-nonsense legend. From The Fugitive and Men in Black to No Country for Old Men, his performances radiate authority and command. But behind that stoic face lies a man fiercely protective of his craft, his privacy, and his principles. Throughout his career, Jones has built a reputation not only for his brilliance, but also for his intolerance toward what he considers mediocrity or pretense. To him, acting is sacred, a discipline, not a popularity contest. And anyone who disrespects the art or disrupts the craft quickly finds themselves on his bad side. In Hollywood, where charm and diplomacy often mask true feelings, Tommy Lee Jones never hid his disdain. He's known for his brutally honest opinions, his icy stares, and his willingness to confront those who cross the line. For some, that honesty was admirable. For others, terrifying. Over the years, whispers from sets, interviews, and private encounters painted a portrait of a man who, despite his calm exterior, held deep-seated frustrations towards certain colleagues. Today, we reveal the untold stories, the behind-the-scenes tensions, on-set clashes, and unforgettable moments that led Tommy Lee Jones to dislike some of Hollywood's biggest names. These are the 6 actors who tested his patience, challenged his values, and in some cases provoked a lifetime of resentment. Because when Tommy Lee Jones hates someone, he doesn't just forget. He remembers. And Hollywood never forgets either. On paper, Batman Forever, 1995, looked like a Hollywood dream, an action-packed blockbuster combining Tommy Lee Jones's steely gravitas with Jim Carrey's wild comedic genius. But behind the scenes, it became one of the most notorious on-set feuds in movie history. 2 acting powerhouses collided, one rooted in serious method discipline, the other thriving on chaos, energy, and improvisation. The result was a clash so explosive that the tension could be felt throughout the set. Tommy Lee Jones, a man known for his precision and control, reportedly found Jim Carrey's unpredictable behavior infuriating. Carrey, then riding the wave of his Ace Ventura and The Mask fame, brought a manic energy to the role of the Riddler. He cracked jokes between takes, improvised wildly, and treated the set like a playground. For many, it was fun. For Jones, it was unbearable. During one infamous encounter at a Los Angeles restaurant, Carrey approached Jones to greet him. Instead of a handshake, he received one of the coldest rejections in Hollywood history. Jones reportedly leaned in, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "I hate you. I really don't like you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery." That line would go down in Hollywood legend, an unfiltered confession from a man who didn't mince words. To Tommy Lee Jones, Carrey's antics weren't just annoying, they disrespected the craft of acting. Jones came from a background of deep character study and emotional realism. Carrey's exaggerated humor represented everything he found frivolous about modern Hollywood. Carrey, for his part, tried to diffuse the tension with humor, but the damage was done. The two avoided each other as much as possible during filming, communicating only when cameras rolled. Yet their on-screen chemistry, the dark, calculating Two-Face versus the wild, unpredictable Riddler, ironically benefited from their real-life friction. Years later, Jim Carrey would speak publicly about the encounter, admitting that Jones's words stunned him. "He was a hero of mine," Carrey confessed, "but I think he was just uncomfortable with my style of comedy." To this day, fans debate whether Jones's reaction was justified or cruel. But one thing is certain, Tommy Lee Jones made it clear he demanded seriousness, even in a world of comic book fantasy. For him, acting wasn't about entertainment. It was about truth, discipline, and respect. Their brief but intense collaboration became a Hollywood cautionary tale, proof that even the biggest stars can clash when their artistic worlds collide. And for Jones, it cemented the first name on his list of actors he simply could not stand to work with again: Jim Carrey, the man whose laughter echoed too loudly for Hollywood's most stoic legend. If Tommy Lee Jones' feud with Jim Carrey was explosive, his silent tension with Val Kilmer during Batman Forever was even more complex, colder, quieter, but just as fierce. Unlike Carey, Kilmer didn't bring chaotic comedy to the set. He brought something else entirely: ego. Val Kilmer was, at the time, one of Hollywood's most in-demand leading men. Coming off the success of Tombstone and The Doors, he was used to being the center of attention. Intense, method-driven, and some would say difficult. Tommy Lee Jones, older, more experienced, and deeply respected, was used to command as well. Put two dominant personalities like that together on the same set, and sparks were inevitable. According to multiple crew members, the tension between Jones and Kilmer wasn't born of open hostility. It was born of mutual disdain. Jones reportedly found Kilmer arrogant and self-absorbed, while Kilmer considered Jones overly rigid and humorless. They were polar opposites in temperament and working style. When the cameras rolled, their professionalism kept the peace, but off-camera, the atmosphere was icy. Crew members described the silence between the two as heavy, filled with unspoken judgment. Kilmer's tendency to question directors or improvise subtle changes in his performance irritated Jones, who valued discipline and preparation. For Jones, filmmaking was a craft that demanded precision. For Kilmer, it was about artistic freedom. Neither was wrong, but neither could coexist comfortably. Director Joel Schumacher once hinted at the on-set tension, diplomatically calling both men strong personalities. In truth, Schumacher was constantly mediating between his stars. Jones reportedly made it clear that he didn't appreciate Kilmer's behavior, saying privately that working with him felt like babysitting an actor who wanted to be a director. Their relationship never escalated to a shouting match. Tommy Lee Jones didn't need words to express disapproval. His silence, his curt nods, and the sharpness in his gaze said it all. Kilmer, sensing the disdain, often withdrew between takes, creating an invisible wall between them. Over time, Jones's dislike for Kilmer became almost legendary in Hollywood circles. While Jones maintained a stoic professionalism, he never worked with Val Kilmer again, nor did he express any desire to. Years later, Kilmer himself would gain a reputation for being difficult to work with, clashing with several other co-stars and directors. For Tommy Lee Jones, such behavior violated the unwritten rule of old-school Hollywood: respect the work, respect your colleagues, and leave the ego at the door. Kilmer's larger-than-life attitude, no matter how talented he was, simply crossed that line. The irony? Both men were cut from the same cloth, perfectionists deeply committed, unwilling to compromise. But when two strong forces refuse to bend, something breaks. In this case, it was any chance of friendship or mutual respect. In the end, Val Kilmer became another name on Tommy Lee Jones's quiet blacklist, a reminder that even in an industry built on illusion, Jones refused to play pretend when it came to integrity. Long before Men in Black and No Country for Old Men made him a legend, Tommy Lee Jones was already carving a name for himself as one of Hollywood's most serious, dedicated actors. So when he was paired with Jim Belushi in the 1990 action comedy Under Siege's spiritual predecessor, The Hard Way discussions, and later, in overlapping studio circles, insiders knew the contrast between them would be jarring. Jim Belushi was everything Tommy Lee Jones was not: loud, playful, spontaneous, and fond of keeping the set light. Jones, on the other hand, approached acting with the same intensity as a soldier going to war. He believed in complete focus, no shortcuts, no distractions. When Belushi's name entered his orbit during late 80s projects and award circuits, the tension was almost immediate, behind closed doors. Producers and crew often joked that putting Jones and Belushi in the same room was like mixing oil and fire. Belushi loved to crack jokes, tease the crew, and sometimes turn filming into a comedy club. For most, that was his charm. But for Jones, it was pure disrespect. He considered humor off-camera as a loss of control, a lack of seriousness toward the art. Their brief encounters, during table reads, studio events, and script meetings, became legendary for the visible discomfort on Jones's face. He reportedly once told a producer that working with Belushi was like trying to rehearse Shakespeare next to a circus clown. Harsh words, but very on-brand for a man who viewed the craft as sacred. It wasn't that Jones hated comedy, far from it. He had a sharp, dry wit that co-stars like Will Smith learned to appreciate. The difference was in attitude. Jones respected structure, timing, and purpose. Belushi thrived on chaos, charm, and spontaneity. And to a man like Jones, who valued control and professionalism above all else, that kind of looseness was intolerable. Hollywood insiders recall an awards party in the early 90s where Belushi, ever the entertainer, approached Jones with a joke about his stone face. Jones reportedly gave him a cold stare and walked away without saying a word. You could feel the temperature in the room drop, one guest remembered. From that moment on, the two men's reputations around each other remained chilly, polite in public, distant in private. Years later, when asked about working with comedians or lighter personalities, Tommy Lee Jones simply said, "I don't mind laughter. I just mind unprofessionalism." It was a subtle jab that many believe was aimed, in part, at Belushi. Their dynamic exemplified a recurring theme in Jones's career, a deep intolerance for anything that disrupted the discipline of acting. To him, every project deserved absolute seriousness. Every set was sacred ground, and anyone who treated it otherwise, whether intentionally or not, risked his respect. For Jones, Jim Belushi represented a side of Hollywood he despised, one that prioritized charm over craft, laughs over legacy, and that, more than anything, made Belushi one of the few actors Jones could never truly stand. By the late 2000s, Tommy Lee Jones was an established Hollywood veteran, an Oscar winner, a living embodiment of old-school discipline and respect for the craft. Meanwhile, a new generation of actors was taking over, led by the likes of Shia LaBeouf, brash, unpredictable, and often unfiltered. When the two were cast together in Company Men, 2010, everyone expected sparks to fly. What they got instead was a full-blown clash of eras, ethics, and egos. Shia LaBeouf, known for his raw energy and unfiltered honesty, came from a different world, one where emotional chaos was considered authenticity. Tommy Lee Jones, the stoic craftsman, came from a tradition of control, precision, and understatement. They represented two completely different philosophies of acting. The tension started during the early rehearsals. Jones, meticulous and methodical, would quietly study his script, rehearse lines under his breath, and stay laser-focused between takes. Shia, on the other hand, bounced between conversations, improvised freely, and brought a nervous, kinetic energy that sometimes threw scenes off balance. Crew members later described their on-set dynamic as frozen. Jones reportedly didn't appreciate Shia's casual attitude and lack of deference toward older actors. In one private moment, Jones was said to have told a producer, "He's talented, sure, but he needs to learn discipline before he learns fame." LaBeouf, for his part, wasn't one to back down. In interviews years later, he admitted that working with Jones was intimidating, calling him a legend who doesn't waste words. But beneath that respect was frustration. He didn't talk much, LaBeouf said, and when he did, it wasn't exactly warm. The real breaking point reportedly came during a press junket when LaBeouf, known for his outspoken personality, made a flippant comment about veteran actors being stuck in their ways. Though he didn't name Jones directly, insiders claimed the older star took it personally. For Jones, that kind of public disrespect, intentional or not, was unforgivable. After Company Men, the two never worked together again. In the years that followed, LaBeouf's off-screen controversies and erratic behavior only reinforced Jones's perception of the younger actor's immaturity. Privately, Jones was rumored to have said he preferred working with professionals, not distractions. Their feud wasn't loud or public, but it represented something deeper, the widening gap between old Hollywood and new. Jones belonged to an era where actors earned respect through discipline and restraint. LaBeouf came from one that prized vulnerability and chaos. The result was a philosophical collision, one that neither man was willing to bridge. For Tommy Lee Jones, Shia LaBeouf symbolized a Hollywood that had lost its seriousness, a place where craft had given way to spectacle. And for LaBeouf, Jones embodied the cold rigidity of an industry unwilling to evolve. Two brilliant actors, two worlds apart, destined to misunderstand each other. By the time Company Men wrapped, their tension had quietly become another chapter in the long list of Hollywood legends surrounding Tommy Lee Jones, the man who never compromised, never softened, and never pretended to like what he didn't. For all his brilliance, Tommy Lee Jones's reputation remains intertwined with these stories. Tales of genius shadowed by stubbornness. Yet perhaps that's what makes him unforgettable. A man so fiercely devoted to truth that even Hollywood couldn't make him fake his feelings.